Hey everyone, welcome to the final episode of your burning questions answered with Open Boat. So we're gonna get right into it and get your final questions answered. Once again, thank you everyone for contributing. I always love talking with our viewers, and if you have any more future questions, feel free to drop a comment, or if you see me out there, just ask me. I will answer your questions. Don't worry, don't be shy. No question is a dumb one. So let's get right into it with John Waters 4296. What are some fundamental techniques that can help an angler improve with bucktail jigging in the surf? So the one thing I can always say is pair your bucktail with a good trailer. For starters, it can take an angler from not catching anything to catching something instantly. I use a JK bait as a trailer for my bucktails, and when I jig off the surf, like you all know, I had my biggest striped bass caught off the surf on my bucktail with a JK bait. And that's just, the proof is in the pudding, it works. When you're bucktailing in the surf, you have to take into the effect the speed that you're reeling, and based off of what power reel you have to see, like, does it naturally retrieve faster? Does it have a slower retrieve? So when you're reeling, you don't want to reel it in super duper fast. You want to have like a moderate speed, so it's slow enough to where it'll stay in the middle of the water column and you can jig it and it does like a little twitch to look like a wounded bait fish. So you gotta do that type of retrieve when you're bucktailing in the surf. That's specifically like for stripers. If you were trying to catch bluefish on a bucktail jig, you do that. Sometimes I like my retrieve a little bit faster because bluefish will just run and hit anything in their line of sight, like psychos. I always recommend that when you're surf casting and want to learn the ways to improve, just keep practicing your retrieves and see which one works best for you. In that situation, of course. You can never truly master something, especially with fishing. I've seen the best anglers get skunked on days, so that's why there's always new factors to learn about and to advance your skills with. So continuing to work on something to figure out every little aspect of it improves an angler significantly. So I'm rooting for you guys out there. Catch some fish, continue to learn, take note of the tactics that you're using and what works best. Next up, we have multiple questions from Glenn Thomas, Realtor 6223. So if you want to sell your house, contact Glenn. But the first question is, what is the first thing you change if you're not catching anything from the jetty? Do you change your soft plastic, retrieve, location, lure, or something else? The one thing, you never leave before you switch things up. You stay and you work on a spot and you make it work for you. So you never leave. Don't even think about it. Don't give up. So you can cast in every direction while you're jetty fishing, trying to make it work. Different retrieves, that's what I do. First off, if I'm getting frustrated, cast every direction, different retrieve, see what's working. And if you don't get any hits, that's when you switch up your lure. Depends on what you're using. Like when I'm jetty fishing, sometimes I'll just use my bucktail and I'll start with that. If that's not working, I'll use just like a deep diving swimmer or like an epoxy jig. It really depends on the time of year, what fish are around, what bait are around, stuff like that. So that's like the best thing, is just stick it out, make it work, don't leave, start with your casting directions and your retrieve, and then think about switching the plug if needed. The next question from Glenn is, what are your thoughts on scented versus unscented soft plastics? So I've always been a fan of the scented soft plastics, from fluking to striper fishing. Every soft plastic I use is scented. Some of them don't smell great, especially if you spill them in your car like I just did, they don't smell good. But scent is a major factor for fish to find food. They have specialized organs called olfactory rosettes, and the number in the folds in the tissue determine how sensitive that fish is to detecting odors. And sometimes that sense of smell is the only way they have to find their meal, because sometimes the water quality can affect their vision. Certain things just, like that, they have to rely on their sense of smell. So yes, scented baits are the way to go. Yes. Next question. What is more important when fishing a soft plastic, color or presentation? Well, when I fish a soft plastic, based on the species, I feel that both of these are important. There's no one or the other. Sometimes weak fish only hits pink soft plastic. Sometimes fluke won't hit a bucktail with a soft plastic. They only want a jig head in soft plastic. Fish, sometimes the bite can be finicky. You have to apply this to every application of fishing for your targeted species and see what works best for that species. You can literally, scientific talk here, you can produce a hypothesis and put it to the work to draw a conclusion. So the final question is, jetty fishing for blackfish, my favorite species. Do they only eat green crabs or will something else work? So jetty fishing for blackfish, which is so much fun, which you can do right now off of like South Jersey, and you can, you know, follow the regulations and keep your one fish if you wanna. But when I go fishing in the summertime for blackfish, my favorite bait of choice are the sand fleas or mole crab, however you call them based off of your region, but they are an excellent all-around bait for summertime stripers and blackfish. Sheep's head and triggerfish, you can really get like the trifecta, beyond trifecta species there. Like you can catch your blackfish, you can catch sheep's head, triggerfish, like I just said, and even some stripers. So you can get like a 4 for 4 with that. You can, like, you don't even have to buy them. You can walk the beach before you go fishing and you could scrape them up with your hands and you collect them and you have bait. You have an infinite bait glitch right there if you find them on the right beaches. And of course, when you're walking the beaches, there's other baits such as like little calico crabs that are shedding. You can use those too, because in the summertime, the blackfish have softer lips and they will crunch those things down, no problem. And that's like one thing. It's basically like a cheat, basically. You're walking the beaches to see what's in the water, bait-wise, to see what the fish are feeding on, so it can be applied to every species you're targeting that you know is running in that area. So you can use also, if you don't want to dig around for sand fleas, you can get like little strips of clam, like salted clam, imitation baits, bits of shrimp, smaller shed crabs, fiddler crabs if you can find them, and even some like sandworms and stuff like that. You can all use those as excellent summertime blackfish jetty baits. So you don't just have to use crabs, you got an array of live and imitation baits. Like Fish Bites makes great imitation blackfish baits for the summertime, like strips, especially for people who don't want to get pinched or they don't want to deal with smelly bait. You can switch up to the imitation alternative. So that concludes part 3 of burning questions. All of your questions have been answered by yours truly. And thank you so much, everyone, for contributing. Like I said before, if you have any more questions, don't be shy. You can feel free to ask me in the comments or ask me if you see me in public fishing or anything. I will answer your question. So thank you again, guys, and I'll catch you on next week's Open Boat.